Peace. Coming at you on the 24th of February, the year 2024 in the Gregorian calendar. And I was checking up on the update on Wendy Williams, and you can call me kei'yah, as the name on the channel says. And I just want to talk on some things that stand out for me. As many of us are concerned about Wendy, I don't know her personally, but I've observed her career over the years, and I've been touched and laughed and found myself talking back at the TV. Okay, so I just want to point out some things that are of concern. I am indigenous to this land known as the United States of America, and I'm not sure if Wendy is, but I would suspect that she is. I was actually born not far from her, like an hour drive away. Like her fiery personality, I get that. So when you see me and I get loud or whatever, it's not that I'm angry. I'm just very passionate about certain things, and people's well-being and things being in good order are some of the things that I'm passionate about, right? So let me just say what stands out for me about this. I know how things are supposed to be, and I am concerned about some of the things I'm not hearing as far as the communication with the family and what have you. So the bank was concerned about the spending. And mind you, I'm not a big TV watcher recently. I've not been. So I'm not going to pretend like I know every piece of the order of what has been happening. It's just that the other day when I heard that the family was not able to reach out to her at their will, that is a matter, because I know, as a formerly licensed healthcare professional, that aphasia is not a reason to hospitalize someone. So I'm not sure exactly what level of care she has, why she's still in care, and the type of dementia that they're describing. Those two things combined together are not reasons for someone to be in facility and not receive the visits and contacts with their loved ones, unless that is her will. But even if it is her will, and we're talking about competency, that's not a reasonable decision financially. Like, who's paying for this and why? Okay, so let me just start out here. I'm coming to you on my God-given right. I'm not coming to you because it's my God-given right and my God-given responsibility to check up when something isn't matching up okay. This is not matching up okay to satisfaction. When I hear that someone's son is despondent and not able to contact his mom, this is Wendy's only child, and to say that she's getting good care, but her loved ones are worried and concerned about her and not in contact with her, then she's not getting good care. Because cultural competence will tell you that someone's kinship, their village, their community is part of their well-being. This is just how it is in America. This is not something I'm making up. This is standard best practice. It's a person and environment model where you look at one's first, let me go back just a little bit. Once the bank was concerned, their first call should have been literally to Adult Protective Service. The call should have been to Adult Protective Service. It should not have been to an attorney or to a judge. If they were concerned about her well-being, Adult Protective Service. Adult Protective Service would have then reached out and completed an investigation. The investigation would have said, hey, what is going on here? Mentally, how are things? What, you seeming disorganized, you're whatever the presentation was. Adult Protective Service, in whatever state this is, which I haven't gone to find out which one it is, but I will. They should have done what's called a psychosocial analysis. You find out, name, what you've been through, what's going on, any recent health problems. If the investigator is concerned that the communication is unorganized and it's not reliable, then you speak to the next of kin. Or you get permission, from, in this case, Wendy, who cares about you? Who is in your circle that you trust? So then these people would have been brought in, and you find out if they have the ability to provide any kind of protective capacity to care for Wendy in her hard time. Now, if she did not have a durable power of attorney, then, if she was recommended to have a durable power of attorney and then she did not have one on file, it is her right to deny it. But if she had a legal team behind her, cared anything about her, they would recommend a durable power of attorney. And even some attorneys are not clear on how it works. I know this because I've helped put durable power of attorneys in place. And I also have I reached out for a consultation because I had a hard time having the bank accept the durable power of attorney that I had for someone else. Now, with the durable power of attorney, some of the things that come up naturally would be like, is this valid right now? Okay. Well, the way you would prove it's valid right now is that if you are giving care to someone that you care about and you realize that they're not at a place, whether it's like a slow decline or it's an intense event where even if they're temporarily sick, it could be any number of things where they don't have the ability to competently make decisions, to read a contract, fully understand it, and then put their thumbprint or X or sign their name, right? So let's say someone had a vision problem. You wouldn't say that they're not competent. You would read the information to them and they would process it. However, it could be the case that they have a problem understanding the information. So it's not just a vision problem. So you can't say, that's what. Now you want a competent medical physician to be able to do the proper assessments. I found that a neurologist is best able to do this. Even those who deal with dementia, or they don't. I've observed someone who's supposed to be a medical doctor and get BS'd by the person who has the impairment, because no one wants to admit when they're impaired, especially someone high functioning. They usually don't want to admit, I don't know what's going on. So you have to ask them questions in a way that does not make them feel demeaned or anything. Ask them questions to find out what they're able to calculate in their mind, whether it be triple digit, quadruple digit numbers and subtraction and things like that. Because sometimes people, they'll not challenge themselves and they'll think, well, yesterday or 2 weeks ago or a month ago, I'm doing all this high level stuff, not recognizing that they went through something in a short time. So you might go 50, 60, 70 years doing things at a high level, and then you have something come up where you're not able to do it anymore. Your brain isn't just going to grasp, I can't do that anymore. You did it for all your life. So I don't even know if denial is the right word for it. I think it's not just a psychological defense mechanism of denial. I think it is. I think it's a name for that condition. I just don't know it because my field of practice is not speech pathology. It's called speech pathology and cognitive. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a speech pathologist, but the name that goes along with that profession has to do with the processes of the brain too, right? Communication sciences is what it is. So, with that said, that is something that happens where someone's not able to perceive that their level of functioning has declined. So they'll say they can do things. It's not that they're lying, it's just they really think they can because they did it for so long, but now they can't. So you have to protect them, and then whatever situation, whatever their needs are, whether it be banking needs, their diet, their choice of people to be around that might be harmful to them, taking advantage of them, or whatever have you. And if you're going to be a caregiver, do not say that you're equipped when you're not. You can always be a caregiver, and you can oversee what other people do for your loved one. You don't have to be a caregiver trying to maintain control, but then you don't have the skill set to do what needs to be done. I've seen that too. That's ugly. Don't do that. So here we are. Someone at the bank is concerned. It should have been a call to Adult Protective Service. Adult Protective Service should have best practice here. I'm talking about best practice. Should have reached out to Wendy. May I come visit your home? Whatever time, date, whatever. If they don't hear back, don't get a call back, they're going to pop up because she's operating as a citizen of whatever state. That's how it works. I'm not trying to say that that's the only way to operate in commerce, but from my understanding of why she would be under guardianship under the state, this is how. Okay. Even with that, there's some information that most people don't know. And this is the age of knowing and understanding. So let's know. Most of the sisters here at the United States of North America, there's no protection as a U.S. citizen. It's just not. We're not debtors to this land unless we choose to be. But the thing about it is we're not given the proper information to be able to make the right decision. So instead of somebody just telling us and saying, here's how you get free, somebody might tell you, you're not a U.S. citizen, but they then start running rituals on you and telling you lies and running games on you and making it quite difficult to get out. Not only that, when you look at the Federal Reserve circulars and you look at how our system operates when it comes to the U.S. Treasury and the U.S. Department of Defense, there are quite a bit of funds that are spent to defend the corporation from the heirs. That's what it is. Okay. So she's operating as a U.S. citizen. She's also probably a citizen of whatever state, and then a U.S. citizen on top of that. Okay, so they should have, if they were following their policies, gone to her home, completed an assessment, and maybe then given orders to someone in the home. That's how it's supposed to be. Now, when you're mega rich and got funds available, maybe we all of a sudden forget how it's supposed to be. Or maybe this is a jurisdiction that just doesn't do business properly. I've worked in 2 jurisdictions. They're right next to each other. One does things properly. They don't really ignore due process. They don't want to get sued, right? But in the other jurisdiction, they just make up stuff along the way. And then you enter into legal courtroom processes and these tribunal court processes where you're required to have an attorney in those processes. Okay. But the only way they could do that is that they violated your rights to due process. You don't just walk down the street and pull somebody up and be like, now we're going to do a tribunal court and put some judgments on you, unless you agreed to that already, or there was some processes that you did not know about, some policy they put in place that you didn't know about because you don't read the paper like every day. All right. These things are immoral, but there's some people who are in a state of fear right now. So they don't know what to do. And we'll get back to that because it doesn't have to be like that. It's actually way easier. But some of us have soul ties to habits that aren't any good for us, right? So that's part of it. So once the Adult Protective Services completes the assessment, if they find that she is not, he or she, in this case we're talking about Wendy, if they were to have found that she is not competent to handle her own affairs, they would mandate that someone in the family takes her. Now they would determine this just from, I'm not sure, like I said, which state it is. So if their social workers or their investigators are social workers, if they're a licensed social worker, they're going to have a higher standard about processes. They're not going to skip and just make up some fluke decision without evidence. At this point, this is without a doctor. This is without a medical doctor. This is just someone doing a psychosocial assessment, maybe looking at the bank records, seeing if things add up or not, seeing if there are withdrawals that can't be explained, inconsistencies. You take the bank report along with the report from Wendy. You find out who has access to your account. If things aren't matching up, then it would be like, okay, you can call the police or call, an attorney. But the next step would be to ask someone in the family to get Wendy to a doctor in an outpatient setting, unless there's some acute medical issue where she would have to be hospitalized, and then they can do an assessment there. But a hospital setting, the assessment is not the same type of assessment as done on outpatient. So let's just say this report came and she was outpatient. She was not in a hospital. The report came, the assessment was done. There were some concerns. That investigator, maybe unlicensed investigator, help me. Why are they unlicensed? Are they unlicensed because that's not a requirement for the state? Or are they unlicensed because they tried to take a test and they couldn't pass a test, so now they take this state job that doesn't pay as well as other jobs? I don't know. I've worked in a jurisdiction where you have to have a license to do these investigations, and I've worked in jurisdictions where you don't have to have the license, and you do see the difference in the quality of service that you get and the professionalism. Okay, so once this happens, the investigator is to make sure that there's an appointment set with a medical doctor if Wendy was still in the community. So you set an appointment, have the loved one or Wendy, whoever, set an appointment with a neurologist who knows how to properly assess. A neurologist, someone who is trained on, not a psychologist, not a psychiatrist, a neurologist. Someone who specializes in strokes or usually someone that's the type of neurologist that you want. Okay, because a psychiatrist or a psychologist, they don't do the same type of assessments as a neurologist. And a neurologist is not diagnosing if you have a severe mental illness or not. They're going to ask questions like, like, what's 103 minus 4? Something like that, So a psychiatrist, they do their assessments after all other health conditions have been ruled out as to the cause of whatever you're going through. All right. So let's just say somebody does have dementia, right? The psychiatrist, let's say they have dementia and no history of mental illness, severe mental illness or anything like that, right? You don't send somebody to a psychiatrist. That's not it. It's a neurologist. And so I heard something say, oh, did you have a neurology appointment? And did you go to the neurologist to find out if you're crazy? No, that's not why you go to a neurologist. You don't go to a neurologist to diagnose a severe mental illness. That's just not accurate. That's not how it works. Like I said, you rule out for the underlying causes of the mental health symptoms, right? Those two diagnoses, neither one of them, of course, it affects your cognitive function, the ability to think through things, right? But it's a different category. When we talk about mental illnesses, we would be talking about depression, bipolar, these type of things. Not the same category, all affecting mental function, but it's something called a diagnostic statistical manual. And the way professionals are trained, we need to know about all these things and how they interact with each other. But it's just different treatments, different medications, that sort of thing. When you're talking about these corporate insurance-based systems, when you want to go the more natural way, maybe the treatments aren't all that much different, to be honest with you, when you want to go natural. But when you're looking at pharmaceuticals and treatment modalities, it's going to be different. Okay. So let's say you go to the neurologist. Neurologist is like, no, we have early onset dementia and aphasia. Okay. I guarantee you don't get hospitalized for those two things together. If someone is hospitalized for something, it's not for those two conditions together. Now, there are many things that people get hospitalized for. Even when it comes to one of the members of her family, her village, I like to say village, they said something about, oh, it's a healing environment. Well, statistically, a hospital, long-term care treatment facility, or whatever, like, these are not statistically healing environments for our people. That's culturally not correct. So my thing is this: of all the money she had, I'm not sure when in the process the guardianship took place, right? But what could have easily happened, and if it didn't happen, there needs to be specific reason why it didn't happen. So we've gotten the psychosocial, so we know what the supports are in the family. You saying you vetted everybody in the family, and no one in the family can be paid to help her, or the guardian. What's the guardian doing? Did the guardian get an assessment from a nurse care manager? Did the guardian get an assessment from a social work care manager? I'm partial to the social worker care manager when it comes to things like cognitive function and that sort of thing, because it's not like a situation where the treatment was something that only a nurse can do. You understand? So a lot of these have to do with setting patterns and habits and controlling the environment. That's something a social worker can do. Look at everything that impacts her well-being. So you're trying to say that there was no way to get help in the home. It was no way to have an in-home nurse. It was no way to have someone prepare her meals. There was no way to come up with a safety plan and a safety agreement with the family that these people who are taking advantage of her not be there anymore. There's no way to have a private attorney to oversee her funds. This was not possible. The only safe thing for to happen is that a state employed or state contractual attorney look over her estate, and then have the nerve to not assure that the things that keep her healthy emotionally are put in place. You're trying to say it's okay that she bring a son into the world and the son not have contact with her? You're saying it's okay for her family loved ones to not be able to go visit her? What kind of drugs are she on? You know, some of these drugs out here, and I say this sui juris at my own right, not submitting to any corporate restrictions that are wrongfully placed on me, because I do make claim to my right as an Indigenous woman on this land. And I do know about my estate that is available to me, and I make claim to that for myself. And this is why I'm asking questions. So this is a year of truth. I've personally had these conversations in the line of work I do. I've developed relationships with the professionals around me. Yeah, you know, I've been told I decided not to practice this type of psychiatry because the medications for those who have dementia, they might do you well for a little bit, but on the long term, they don't do you well. But you know what? There have been many professionals that have demonstrated the ability of the brain to heal and for these symptoms to reverse. And I held up a book the other day, but Dr. Bredesen has a book on it, and Dr. Amen. And with the resources that Wendy has, why would not she want to do that? These are resources that are not available inpatient. She's a young woman. This is young. And I've heard many a story of people talk about putting the right things in place and regaining their level of function, being able to go back to work after being in situations where they couldn't function. In fact, there's the medical doctor who created the LASIK surgeries. He talked about how he lost his functioning, how he got an infection, frontal temporal, right, dementia. So he was breathing in some viruses, and he said he was only able to work 15 minutes a day. He couldn't keep his focus. So eventually it got to the point he quit his job, and the amount of time that he had where he was able to focus, he would spend all that time researching. And he shares his research and what he did to regain his functioning. But when he talks and presents it, he has to do it outside of the licensing piece, because he's still a licensed medical doctor. He has to announce, hey, I'm doing this on my right to free speech. All right? Because other than that, then the board is going to come at you, try to get some money out of you. So here we are with these questions. if you have a guardian, the guardian is responsible to put in place the necessary care in the least restrictive environment. And we have to be clear. A lawyer and an attorney are not the same thing. It's an attorney that we're talking about that has been assigned this account. All right. The matter with it is this: we have to know that we want to be clear. Lawyers and attorneys, those are two different words, two different meanings, not interchangeable. And I'm going to use the initials GW. That's who I used to be a hairstylist, and I had the opportunity to get to know many people in their walks of life, and I would always ask questions about their professions. So one of my clients, he was a recruiter for law schools. He recruited for a few different law schools over his career. And I considered, before I went back to acquire my master's degree, I considered a few different professions. So I asked him about law school. And he made it clear to me. He's like, look, many people go to law school with the intent of bettering themselves, make sure they're more equipped for whatever their entrepreneurial pursuits may be or what have you, right? He's like, you want to pick a law school that's in line with your career goals, right? So not everyone who goes to law school wants to be an attorney. Not everyone who goes to law school takes an oath. See, what has to happen is you have to pass a test to become an attorney. You have to pass a test. Once you pass a test and you qualify, if you so choose, it doesn't really make sense to pass a test and then don't get the license, really, unless you changed your mind, or, I guess you don't want to spend the money or whatever. Or, to be honest, I know I used to be licensed in a profession. I didn't want to be bothered with them because one of the states that I worked in, they had a reputation of being egregious and making up reasons. You call to ask a question, and next thing you know, you get a letter in the mail talking about you broke a rule. So I'll get into that one a little bit later. But that is a reason why you might take a test and then you don't apply for the license, is because and I'm talking about in this Babylonian system right here, the one that's coming down. I'm talking about in that system. It's kind of a different conversation that we can get into, but I don't want to take it too much on a tangent about this, because this is about Wendy and really understanding how this can't remain the way it is. All right. And I'm optimistic that it's going to change and that we're going to all learn a lot from it. It'll be lessons learned that we won't stand by. We know something's wrong, but a lot of people don't know exactly what's wrong. And there are a few of us who know exactly what's wrong because we've seen the inside of the system. All right. And I'm just on the surface this time because I just want to start where we are, which is something ain't right. All right. So attorneys and lawyers are not the same. And I saw that. I like that Saturday Night Live skit. Go back to that. A couple months ago now, there was a skit on the airplane when the man was talking about, I'm a lawyer, that's the best profession or whatever. But the thing is, an attorney and a lawyer are not the same. A lawyer can, let me just say it like this. If I needed some help, I might seek a private attorney that is not licensed by a state. Yeah, you can do that. Because if they're licensed by the state, then their first loyalty is to this state, not to you. Or you can hire an attorney, a state attorney that has limited function, even limited ability to you don't have to sign a blanket form. Now, if she's impaired and her signature is not valid right now on contracts, yeah, I could see why the state would think that that's okay to do. However, there is due process. There is due process. And you can hire an attorney to pursue your rights in commerce. Hire an attorney to address this other attorney. I've been in situations where one person would have like 3 attorneys. Yeah. I've worked in foster care. So one attorney is just to make sure the foster care needs are met. The other attorney, well, actually it's like, it could be 4 or 5 attorneys in the whole thing, right? Because then you have the quote unquote judge, or better said, magistrate. Now, they're actually not supposed to be licensed in that role. Most people don't know that. But they don't give up their license. So here they are, licensed. That means under the Bar Association. Then you have the state attorney saying what the needs are. Then you have the guardian ad litem representing the child, maybe. Then you have the attorney. Let's say the child's like, I don't want to be in care anymore. I'm 17 and a half. I want to be on my own. So you have an attorney representing just that matter right there only. Then there's an attorney for maybe the foster parent, maybe, depending on the situation. Or sometimes that attorney would be the state attorney, but depending on where they are in the case. Then you have the attorney for the parent. If the parent still has some type of rights, they want to maybe reunify with the child. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you have the social worker. To be honest, depending on how good the guardian ad litem is, you'll find that the social worker is really the only one who, really, that's why if your jurisdiction is doing things right, the social worker is supposed to lead the team. And it's because they're the one who's going to get in depth to each relationship and make sure everything goes well. But after working in these systems that are highly litigious, you'll find within a month or so of doing that you're not running anything. You can contribute a lot, and you are held to a standard, whereas your ethics are going to be different, and you cannot break your ethics. You might have to not listen to them if you want to stay in honor and in line with what's right. I've been told to do the most ridiculous thing by a state attorney before. The judge said such and such before you came here. The judge said this. I'm like, okay, that's why the case is all a mess, because the social worker was trying to follow the judge or the magistrate. That's not how it works. No, you have to do what's right, because your training is specific to people, to person, in the whole environment. Their training is specific to that legal piece, and the ethics conflict. So a guardian ad litem, not a guardian ad litem, a guardian, I'm talking now about Wendy again. The guardian, if they're not being held to the standard to put treatment in the community, that's a problem in the system. And usually things like this are changed when we make claims. So I'm putting it out there for the public domain to know that Wendy has rights in commerce. when I am able, I'm going to get a little bit more information. But at the end of the day, it's like this. An adverse claim to the reversionary interest in her ancestral estate. She has one. And like Kat said, our oppressors know who we are, but we don't seem to know who we are. But I'm saying I know who we are. I know that women like her are the cornerstone to the world's economy. I know that when everyone comes into honor, things will be much better. I know Wendy's going to be back home. I know the banks are not going to fall. The banks are not going to fall because we're going to learn how to bank privately. We're going to learn how to come into honor. We're going to learn that we have to let go of some of these fears we have. I know that the good thing about a crisis is that it's the best opportunity for change. And this is a little bit of a swinging of the pendulum, right? And this is not a lesson that has to be learned at the expense of these beautiful people and of Wendy. This is not in the cards for Wendy, just because someone doesn't know how to open up their mouths and say, hey, we're broke and we need somebody else's estate to pillage. And people are not stupid. If they didn't want to get caught or they didn't want this to be a conversation piece, this wouldn't be a conversation piece. Because it's clear here that due process has not taken place. And if it is, I mean, everybody has amnesia in the family, because everybody in the family should be able to say, no, they asked me that I want to help and I didn't want to. They asked me that I want to be on the payroll, because see, that's another thing a guardian can do. A guardian can be the one who makes sure the money is spent in a certain way. So you don't detain somebody in healthcare just because the money is going a certain way. You can spend the money you can be financial guardian, a financial conservator. Come on now. So this is part of my hashtag Free Wendy USA, hashtag Fix It. Okay, so let me just say this. I need everybody to look up the Federal Reserve circulars, because many of us bank publicly, and we don't understand. I hope that she wasn't banking publicly. I hope she has some type of private banking, but I don't know. And what I'm saying, I'm not making any judgment about people's intention, because sometimes people are serving certain functions in a system and they don't even recognize, because they've been trained as a professional, and it's almost like you're almost like a skilled slave, right? Because you go to school, you get your A's, you take the test, and then you go out there and you do what needs to be done. But you don't realize that your energy is being used in a system that it really isn't in line with law. We're taught what is legal, but we're not taught what the real law is. So, I came up in a profession like that where people would say certain things, just derogatory things about the field, not even knowing that every jurisdiction is different, and some jurisdictions have a higher standard than others. And so ain't nobody snatching babies or whatever in one jurisdiction. You might have another jurisdiction where the whole county is privately owned by someone who sells children into a system. Yes, there's such a thing. There are counties in the United States where the attorneys will take $40,000, $50,000 to sell a child into a trafficking situation. When I heard that, I was like, how could that ever happen? But, this there are lots of there are rural areas. There are all sorts of things that happen. So I can't imagine this happening in a big city. There are other things that happen in big cities, but the city that I learned how to navigate in, that wasn't going to happen. Not an attorney. That would be stupid for an attorney to sell a child into care. That'd just be ridiculous. I mean, into being trafficked. That's ridiculous. There are other things that happen. Yes. Like say the attorney, the guardian ad litem is supposed to check on the child throughout the month, make sure everything's good. There was one attorney. She would wait until the night before the once a month court and go check on the child. Couldn't nobody find her in between. But we, as professionals, were not trained on how to file a complaint, how to take an action. So we weren't empowered on what to do about this. And that's not the pattern. Most of them were good. They would listen, most of them. Some of them didn't listen. You say, okay, this is the resource that this child needs. Can you hook them up, please? You know, certain things the social worker should do, certain things the guardian ad litem need to do. But I've heard, oh, well, no, that's not a good way to spend the money for that resource. Well, how do you know? You don't know anything about resource management? Nothing. Because if you did, you would know that if the money is not spent, it won't be there next time. But yet you'll let a home fall apart because someone's not getting the services that they need. So communication is important. Teaming is important. Respecting each professional for what they bring to the table is important. Now, I'm speaking about all of this from the standpoint of what should happen on a corporate state level. And then I mentioned something else that some people who are adept at law know. It's no secret anymore. It's no secret about who the women here are. So maybe to some, but I mean, there are more and more people who are waking up. And we got the hint. We got the hint at Super Bowl. We saw those sisters 2 years in a row standing on the cornerstone, the white square on the 50-yard line, singing Lift Every Voice and Sing, a song that everyone, no matter your skin color or tone, can sing. All right. So thanks for listening. I'll check back in with you soon when I get some more information. Let me see. What did I want to mention? Oh, I'll come back with you. I'll come back tomorrow to make some announcements about some things. Yes, it has to do a little bit with trust law. When you're moving assets from the public to the private, you want to use a trust. Okay. And the jurisdiction of the trust is not the public. And what else? Oh yeah, the claim of the estate. I know some of y'all feel me. I know Wendy has to have somebody connected to somebody. You know, I don't have his number, but Wendy might know somebody to know somebody. I'll be calling somebody who has an estate, whether they look like me or not. Donald Trump got an estate. I'll be calling him. I'll be asking him, do you have an attorney who's not licensed to the state? I don't know. And we have to have a heart of forgiveness in this season, because if we go around holding hostilities for things that were done wrong, we're not going to make it, because this is a season of change. We're learning things. And when someone gets called out for doing something wrong, you can let it go, right? We experienced that with Kat, telling people what's going on, and then a week or two later, somebody gonna be talking about that wasn't the same joke. Like, that's an insult to everyone's intelligence. This is the age of knowledge. Know thyself first. It's okay to be like, hey, I did that thing and that was messed up and I'm not going to do it anymore. And I'm not talking about repent with your heart. I'm talking about repent with your actions. All right? Right thoughts, right words, right deeds. And everybody makes mistakes. And the longer we try to hold on to some image as if I'm perfect and I never make mistakes, that's called narcissism. And we don't need that. And it's getting more and more difficult to gaslight people about the things we see going on. And then when we choose our friends and our associations, we have to ask ourselves, are these things that are good for my survival, right? Because when we all want to move in a group all the time, like say the whole church got to agree before I stand, or the whole profession has to agree before I do what's right, or my whole sorority got to give a approval before I do what's right, my whole fraternity or my whole order or my whole everything has to all agree before we do what's right. What's that going to look like? It's not going to look good. So I'm challenging everyone to, ask for wisdom, knowledge, understanding, then wisdom, right? Get knowledge, get understanding, and get wisdom. Well, it'll lead to wisdom. All right. Peace.